What's up, my handsome little hazelnuts? This is Rob from A Gay Guy Plays, and today on The Daily Grind, we're back with another installment of Rob Reads You Shit That You Don't Want to Read Yourself. Now, as you can see, 2020's first main line is proving to be a chonky boy, because we actually have a part 2 to the Devworkshop that was dropped, I believe, Friday? Was it really that soon? I don't know. Regardless, review, revise, refresh, the second coming is coming. Now, if I'm gonna be completely honest with you, I have actually started to read and record this earlier, then I slowly started realizing there's way too much to cover in a single video. So there is actually some operator Magus changes that I'll be saving for a separate video, kind of like how we did with the Arcane changes. That way we can really dig into what's going on with that one. In addition to that, I actually went ahead and pulled up the wiki because we have some very interesting depth of status changes that I wanted to compare and contrast, because I see a little shady dealing going on. Regardless, without ado, let's go ahead and jump on in. Tenno, we are still slated to release this mainline this week, today on PC if we're lucky. But since Friday's workshop, a couple of new added details have emerged that warrant sharing ahead of launch time. Please review Friday's workshop before diving in here. I will go ahead and leave my video linked up in the top corner where I went ahead and read that to you, as well as the Arcane changes, and one more video. That's a lot of videos going on right now, but I got a little bit of a conspiracy theory as to what's been going on with all of these Arcane thingamabobbers. I'll also leave them down in the description box below in case you're curious. Now, our Control F index as follows: Warframe armor buffs, Arcane Guardian rank 5 details plus reminders, Operator Magus changes, which is going to be in a separate video, but we'll touch on it very quickly, depth of status changes, aura changes, self-damage plus AoE weapons, and closing. So we're going to kick things off on a good note because we have some Warframe armor buffs. The following armor values are changing for Warframes: Ash 65 to 100, Ash Prime 150 to 175, Banshee 15 to 100, Banshee Prime 65 to 125, and I know all of the Banshee mains out there are like, oh thank God we got a little something. It's not much something, but it's a little something, because we know that she's a little bit of a squish booger, but I'm happy that she's getting some love. Baruch 150 to 175, Ember 100 to 125, Ember Prime 125 to 150, Equinox 100 to 125, Equinox Prime 120 to 150, Gara 125 to 150, Gauss 150 to 175, Harrow 150 to 175, Hydroid 200 to 225. Ooh, you getting thick, boy. Hydroid Prime 250 to 275. Ooh, those tentacles. Wanaros 200 to 225, Alvara 65 to 100, Alvara Prime 65 to 125, Limbo 65 to 100, Limbo Prime 85 to 125, Loki. I always feel good when my boy gets love. 65 to 100, Loki Prime 65 to 125, Meg 65 to 100, Meg Prime 65 to 125, Mesa 65 to 100, Mesa Prime 85 to 125, Mirage 65 to 100, Mirage Prime 150 to 175. Ooh, the thickness. Necros 65 to 100, Necros Prime 65 to 125, Ninja 175 to 190. I know this is a weird thing to mention, but I was waiting for like Ninja Prime. I was like, Ninja Prime, and I was like, oh, he's not there, but he should be. Nova 65 to 100, Nova Prime 65 to 125, Nyx, yo, she's been sitting on 15 for a while, 15 to 100. Can we give claps for our girl? Nyx Prime 50 to 125, Oberon 150 to 175. I was sad that there was not an Oberon Prime buff too. I mean, come on, give the boy some love. You gave him a dad stomach. Let him use it for additional armor. Octavia 125 to 150, Revenant 105 to 125, Rhino 190 to 225, Trinity 15 to 100, Trinity Prime 15 to 125, Vauban 50 to 150, Vauban Prime 100 to 200. Thick boy, all right. Volt 15 to 100, Volt Prime 100 to 125, Wisp 150 to 175. That ass is just getting thicker by the day. Zephyr 15 to 100. I know a certain Zephyr main out there that is just jumping for joy right now. Zephyr Prime 75 to 125. Why? The conversation surrounding Arcane Guardian led to a significant review of armor stats on Warframes. The majority of Warframes received an increase in the armor stat to increase survivability, compounded with shield gating and numerous other changes covered. We expect a much more fair feeling playing field for all Warframes. Moving on, we have Arcane Guardian details plus reminder. Arcane Guardian on rank 5 on damage, 15% chance for 900 armor for 20 seconds. Now, we also have some information on Arcane Energize. It will still give energy to toggled Warframe abilities. This has been asked a lot. You know what else has been asked a lot? What is the cooldown on the ability? Do I see any additional text that addresses it? It's funny how you're willing to address certain things that have been asked a lot, but not other things that have been asked a lot. And even if it's just working values, we're willing to play around with them, see how they feel, and if they affect us in a major way or not, and then provide you feedback. But for some reason, you've kind of skipped over all of that information completely. I wonder why. I hope that we find it in the UI. I'm just putting it out there. Arcanes will require 21 arcanes to reach the new max rank of 5, which means that for everybody who's been double stacking, you're actually going to need an additional arcane to get to that last level, which is only 1.5 times intensity instead of the full 2 times intensity. Scarlet Spear will feature a buy what you want shop for arcanes based on the currency earned in the event. It will launch in March shortly after the main line. Here's my issue with that. Number 1, arcanes based on currency earned. How much is the currency going to be for those top tier arcanes? In addition to that, there are I look at this, I'm sorry, we're jumping back into the conspiracy area, put on your tinfoil hats. Y'all really just trying to get people in to play this goddamn event that you're willing to nerf their arcanes to get them to do it. You're like, listen, your arcane, you can't put in that last level of your arcane unless you come in to play our event. And some people really don't want to play the railjack leg of the event because they don't want to do it. They've already been playing it and they don't like it. And you're like, but you gotta get that last tier of your arcane that we nerfed. I'm just saying, it's not a good look. You might want to bump up some of those values. Now, here's the Magus arcane changes. I'm not going to go, it's a long list. And y'all, we just, well, maybe it's not that long. Maybe I lied. I lied. We'll take a look at them here. I spent so much time at the very beginning of the video talking about the fact that we're not going to look at it. We're going to look at it. Magus Accelerant on rank 5 on Void Blast. Reduce enemy resistance to heat damage by 65%. Magus Anomaly on rank 5 on Transference In. Enemies within 30 meters are pulled towards a Warframe. Magus Cadence on rank 5 on Void Dash. 100% chance for 90% sprint speed for 12 seconds. I just don't see that being a thing that I give a shit about. Now, Magus Cloud, supposedly they did change. On rank 5 on Void Mode, 300% Void Dash radius for 6 seconds. That's not terrible. That's interesting. Magus Disrupt on Void Blast. Reduce enemy resistance to puncture damage by 65%. Magus Drive on rank 5 on Transference In. Increase K-Drive speed by 150% for 30 seconds. Are you wondering why some of these, Maguses don't get touched? Magus Elevate on rank 5 on Transference In. 95% chance to restore 300 health to Warframe. That one's actually not bad. Magus Firewall on rank 5 on Void Mode. Generate Void Particles 1 second up to 6 particles, each granting 12.5 damage reduction for 60 seconds. Taking damage consumes a particle. Magus Glitch on rank 5 on Transference Static. 102% chance to negate the Transference Static. Magus Husk on rank 5 on Transference Out. 150% armor. Magus Lockdown. Oh my god, don't fuck this one up. Don't fuck this one up. On Void Dash, drop a mine that tethers up to 10 enemies in 15 meters. After 4 seconds, it explodes, dealing 60% of their health as puncture damage. Doesn't seem like they fucked that one. Did they fuck it? I didn't bring up that screen. Oh, let me know if they fucked it down in the comments below. Magus Melt on rank 5 on Void Dash. Increased heat damage of Operator Mode by 20 seconds for 15 seconds, stacking up to 7 times. Magus Nourish on rank 5 on Transference Out. Restores 35 health per second to Warframe. Magus Overload. On rank 5 on Void Blast, stun robotic enemies for 3 seconds, which then discharge electricity damage, dealing 80% of their max health to anyone within 25. Magus Repair. On rank 5 on Void Mode, heal Warframes within 30 meters by 25 health per second. Magus Replenish. Wait, am I crazy? No, that's fine. That's right. Magus Replenish. On rank 5 on Void Dash, 100% chance to heal 30% health. Magus Revert. On rank 5 on Void Dash, use again within 3 seconds to return to operator their original position at no energy cost. Restores 60 health, 3-second cooldown. And then we have Magus Vigor on rank 5 on Transference Out, 300 plus health. Why the operator Magus changes were stated in a simple line in the first workshop, but we wanted to go into greater detail in these. We have reworked Magus Cloud since its original design was not popular. There are plenty of arcanes as well that are not very popular, but I didn't see you reworking those. Just a suggestion. Maybe you want to do the same thing that you did to these ones. Maybe that just needs to be an entirely separate video. Depth of status changes. Our original workshop said the following. In further additions, previously unstackable status effects, puncture, cold, magnetic, radiation, viral, will now have stacking effects. We'll have more information on this later as it develops. This part 2 serves to provide that information in a way. Status changes are much bigger than just give 100% over 100% status meaning. While getting 2 status effects on a single shot is a novel change, the way status will now stack is likely going to be more noticeable. We have made substantial changes not only to adding stackable status effects to those statuses without it, but also changing some existing. So we have the type on one side, and then we have stacking behavior when a duplicate status effect occurs on the other side. So slash. Each slash status has its own duration, but we now only show a maximum of 10 damage numbers in the HUD. Damage is unaffected, but reducing how many damage events we show helps with performance. So basically what they're saying is they haven't really done anything to change it, but they're just not going to show you every single number. Impact. Repeat single target impact status effects will escalate the efficacy of the impact status from stagger to full ragdoll. Now, if you guys remember Damage 2.5, where they were kind of previewing Kahora, and she had her whip, and she had it set to the impact, and she was ragdolling enemies halfway across the field, I'm very curious to see how intense the ragdoll is going to be on this one. Because some of it was like, yo, really? You really gonna make us chase over that enemy over there? Like, that's a little much, but we'll see how it all plays out. Puncture. The first puncture status effect has the enemy deal 30% less damage. Subsequent puncture statuses add 5% weakening, leading up to 75% capped. Each puncture status has a duration of 6 seconds. Now, I'm just gonna like double check this because what I'm seeing right now, and I'm not sure if this is accurate, but this is from the wiki. The first puncture status effect has an enemy deal 30% less damage. Yo, I think, did they nerf that? Because I'm looking at the wiki over here and it's saying, puncture reduces any damage dealt to 70% for 60 seconds. Oh, no. It's the other, they flipped it. So this says that they deal 30 less damage, and this over here says that they reduce any damage dealt by 70%. No, that's my own brain. They flipped it. Sorry, the descriptions were odd, but now they're letting it up, go up to 75% cap. Now, this one I think is really, really interesting because there are certain Warframes with forced, puncture abilities, which kind of proc that status, so maybe they'll find a way to kind of like, I don't know, maybe they'll make some cool builds where you keep putting out puncture statuses to really reduce enemy efficacy. That would be kind of cool. Now, this one I know that they fucked. Let me make sure again that I did not know. It seems like they did. So this is cold. The first cold status deals 25% slow. Subsequent cold statuses deal 5% slow for a total of 70% slow at 10 procs. 10 procs, that's a lot of procs. Each cold status has a duration of 6 seconds. I hope I'm not reading this wrong because reduces movement speed, fire rate, and attack speed by 50% for up to 6 seconds. So is it me or did they nerf cold procs? They nerfed it by half because it's 25% to begin with, so you're going to need to hit that enemy with 2 cold procs in order to get the current amount of cold we already have put in there. So I don't know how I feel about that one, but I'm glad. But here's the thing. No, I was wrong. You'd have to hit him a whole bunch of times to get to the same amount of cold that we have already. Because it's 25 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. Holy shit. So you're going to have to hit them a total of 6 times to get, at least, if my math is right, 6 times, right? In order to get the same amount of cold proc that we have now. I'll like that one. Moving on, heat, no change because heat is currently living its best life. Toxin, C/, plus the base duration of a toxin status effect now matches / for 6 seconds. So originally, that's a little bit of a nerf too. I wonder if they've changed, I wonder if they've changed the damage output of it at all, because as you can see right now, toxin is going to be reduced to 6 seconds, but the current duration of it is 8 seconds. It's almost like they're saying it's gonna be better, but we nerfed it a little bit. Does that make sense? It's almost like they said, we made it better, but we also nerfed it a little bit. I don't know how I feel about that. Electric, AoE electric damage that is part of the status effect can now reoccur while the target is still under the stun animation of another electric status effect. So basically you can just keep like chain electricity stunning enemies. Blast, AoE, impact that goes through enhanced stages of crowd control and knockdown with repeat status. So this one I'm curious to see what this is because it is a knockdown instead of the ragdoll like impact. So does it escalate into ragdolls? So now the blasts aren't just going to knock enemies down so you can't get headshots, but they might also ragdoll them super far away. We'll have to see how it translates in game because they did not say that specifically here. You know, they say that they're going to address shit, but I don't know. It doesn't seem that clearly addressed here. Corrosive. The first corrosive status effect strips 26% armor. Subsequent corrosive status effects strip 6% more armor, leading up to 80% armor removal. If you notice, leading up to 80% armor removal, which means that you can't 100% strip armor. Now, again, I don't know 100% how this is going to affect the game because we do have a dramatically changed armor scaling system now, so this might be okay, or it might not be okay. But the other thing to note is each corrosive status only lasts 8 seconds because that's how corrosion lasts in real life. Corrosion just magically goes away. Note, corrosive was the only status with infinite duration and 100% efficacy towards a defensive stat. This was necessary to some based on how armor scaled. We feel our rebalancing efforts need a differently behaving corrosive to balance out overall status overall. Again, this does not seem good. However, well, to be frank, this seems kind of like a little bit of a nerf. But what I will say is, we'll have to wait and see. I'm gonna hold judgment until it launches and actually play it. And if it's good, I'll let you know then that it's good. This next one seems interesting though. Radiation. The first radiation status effect has enemy deal 100 damage to allies. Subsequent damage radiation stacks 50% damage, leading up to 550% capped. Each radiation status effect has a duration of 12 seconds. So basically, the enemy is going to deal more and more damage to its allies the more radiation you toss on it. Interesting. It's kind of like one of Nyx's augments that she has, or no, I don't even know if it's an augment anymore. One of Nyx's the mind control ability where you can like pump damage into it to help it deal more damage to enemies out there. Moving on, we have Magnetic, which is a new status effect entirely. Enhanced damage. First magnetic status effect deals 100% additional shield damage. Subsequent magnetic statuses add 25% for a total of 325 capped. Enemies under a magnetic status effect cannot regenerate shields. Magnetic status duration is now 6 seconds. Again, I don't know how this is going to feel. We're going to have to play around with this in-game before we judge anything. But it's interesting. The next one, though, I think some people are not going to be happy about. New status effect entirely. Enhanced damage. First viral status effect deals 100% additional health damage. Subsequent viral status add 25% for a total of 325 capped. So note, before Viral would have a target's health pool and simply refresh the duration. Now it deals 2 times the damage to health and can scale up to 4.5 times damage on repeat status effects. Now the question is, does this bypass armor? Does this bypass shielding? Like when you say deals 100% additional damage to health, like, does that mean that if it's got shields up, kind of like Toxin bypasses, will this bypass and deal that damage to the health as well? Or will we need to wear everything down? Just put it out there, because Viral was a debuff as a very, very... Ooh, how is this going to affect Saren? This might actually be good for Saren. Interesting. We'll see how that all plays in. The base duration of a gas status... Okay, moving on to gas. The base duration of a gas status effect now matches Slash for 6 seconds. And gas used to be, how long? 8 seconds. So they nerfed it by 2 seconds. Yo, listen, I am willing to see how this all plays out. But it seems like you nerfed some things and you changed some other things. I don't even want to say you buffed some things. It seems like you nerfed some things and changed some things that may potentially be better. We don't know. But I don't know. Why? The inclusion of this enhanced or different stacking of duplicate status effects is one to refresh the appeal of status. Our long-term goal with this change is to build upon the series of changes to allow status to impact bigger threats like liches and eidolons and not just have blanket immunity. Okay, so that's an interesting thing. They're gonna try to be okay with this to be applied to targets that usually didn't have status effects. That's an interesting point. So I'm still unsure about how I feel about any of these, but we'll see how. I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. However, if Force Vacuum stays on Trash Bag, I ain't giving you any benefit of any doubt. Faction aura changes. There are 3 auras that target specific factions: Infested Impotence, Corrosive Projection, and Shield Disruption. We are rebalancing the faction auras to not completely bypass our rebalancing effort. More importantly though, with the complete enemy defenses rescale, these auras, mostly Corrosive Projection, will not be as necessary as they were. Why? We think being consistent is a key. Passively removing 100% of an enemy's defenses is not an interesting choice, and we're completely inconsistent in regard with auras, i.e. the efficacy of 4 times Corrosive Projection versus 4 times Shield Disruption. Expect these auras to reach somewhere in the 60 to 80% range when 4 times are equipped, as we are still testing. I'm gonna just say one thing. Let's just why we think consistent is a key. Removing 100% of an enemy's defenses is not an interesting choice. I'm gonna say something. It's not an interesting choice, but it's an effective choice. Y'all want to keep putting in interesting choices like K-Drive movement speed, parkour, what do you call this? Parkour momentum. Those are interesting choices to you. I don't think we give a shit about your interesting choices. We just want effective choices, all right? Like, maybe you could make those effective choices interesting, variants, and maybe they could be effectively interesting in a different way. But y'all like to give us interesting choices which are just fucking dumb. How about that? How about giving us interestingly effective choices instead of giving us really fucking dumb ones? Let's go ahead and take a look at self-damage and AoE weapons. In addition to self-damage being removed, some of the more powerful AoE weapons without self-damage presently will have stagger added, but it should only be noticeable in cases of extreme inaccuracy on the player's part. AKA, if you suck, you gon' get hit a lot. Like hit, but like the new effect of being flipped away. The weapons include Kuva Shakur, Opticore Vandal, Batacore, Simulor, Cynoid Simulor, Ferox, Astilla, Shedu, Kuva Seer, Cynex, Staticore, Pox, I guess the initial explosion of the Pox? Huh? Tombfinger, Gramnu Prism, Exard Scaffold. In the original Devworkshop, we said as a result of this overall systemic change, weapons will stagger. We'll be getting approximately a 20% buff in damage, with any of the weapons AoE receiving a 50% radial damage fall off from central impact. This is no longer accurate after continued testing. What we are doing now is no damage buffs have been added, but weapons with AoE are receiving a negative 20%, an approximately 20% increase in radius. Additionally, AoE weapons are receiving a 90% radial damage fall off from central impact. This means on the very outer section of explosion radius, 10% of the damage will be dealt. Tactics will be deadly, aim true 10-0. So, 90% damage radial fall off. So on the outer edge of the explosion radius. I mean, again, we'll have to see how this all plays out. Why? Several players brought up the history of the Tonkor, and we want to make sure we ship this change in a place that's conservative in the starting point from a balanced perspective. The complete removal of self-damage does not change the pace of destruction with some of the game's most powerful weapons, so we want to make sure we can iterate upwardly instead of releasing a bonanza of explosions with no other choices. Closing. This post serves as an expansion to the big picture changes coming in the main line. Please ensure you review the original post. We really are changing a lot in the accrued staleness to Warframe systems to refresh the modding and gameplay. We will have 15 plus feedback threads open after launch, as well as dedicating bug reporting threads. See you then, Tenno. We are very excited for the whole package of revisions. We'll see. We'll see. This is gonna be, listen, I'm always gonna play it before I make any judgments, just like with Basura. I played it and I judged that it was Basura, and it will continue to be Basura forever, but I will always play it and I will try it. I will give it a shot, and I will rant and bitch and moan if they really fuck it up. Keep that in mind. Regardless, let me know how you guys feel about all of these changes down in the comments below. I want you guys to keep an open mind, but also don't fucking drink the Kool-Aid. That's the biggest thing that I want to put out there. Don't start kissing people's asses and say, oh, I'm sure it'll be okay. We're not sure it'll be okay. Let's test it, and then we'll talk about it being okay. Don't drink the fucking Kool-Aid, okay? On either end. Don't be super crazy negative, and don't also be super crazy positive. Just stay optimistically, wait, what? Cynically optimistic? Cautiously optimistic. Be cautiously optimistic. Regardless, leave me a, I don't know, a dollar sign down in the comments below if you manage to get to the very, very end of this episode. It always makes my heart feel good when you guys do. Regardless, that about does it for me for now. And as always, love somebody, hurt nobody, and touch your body. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.